Welcome to my show, When Everyone Wins, where a key goal I have for you is shifting from power over and under to power within and between. I'm your host, Judy Ryan. In each episode, I'll share my knowledge from decades in workplace culture transformation and leadership development as the founder and CEO of LifeWorks Systems. I'll help you build trust and emotional and social intelligence. My show, When Everyone Wins, is about creating a life you love and helping others do the same. Welcome, everybody, to our show. We're so happy to be presenting to you on a very exciting topic on creating win-win while you're growing a business. So, if you've been a business owner or you've been part of a startup, you know that starting and growing a business isn't always easy, especially today when the speed of change is accelerating and things are getting more complex and new technologies seem to throw a monkey wrench into everything. The greatest way to ensure that your business grows well and in the healthiest possible direction is by making sure that you put in place the best, the most conscious, and the most evolved workplace culture practices possible. Your people are your greatest treasure after all, and tending to them is key to your success. Which leads me to today's guest. I'm happy to introduce you to my guest, Tran. Tam is an executive business coach who helps small to medium-sized business owners and their leadership teams to scale profitably by aligning strategy, people, and execution. With 20 plus years of leadership across oil and gas, entrepreneurship, and service as a commissioned officer in the United States Army. By the way, thank you so much for that, Tam. Tam brings a calm, process-driven approach to growth. He turns big goals into clear priorities, simple operating rhythms, and repeatable systems that empower leaders, strengthen teams, and improve performance. His work helps organizations to grow without chaos while protecting culture, quality, and the margins as they scale. Tam holds a Master of Business Administration and Finance from UCLA, Anderson School of Management, a Master of Arts in Leadership Studies from the University of Texas in El Paso, Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the United States Military Academy at West Point, and is a certified executive coach from through the Berkeley Executive Coaching Institute. Whew, I'm tired, Tam. Welcome. You come so qualified. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Judy, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So, Tam, as you and I know, our audience doesn't know, we just recently met, and it's because we sound like we're really both into the same kind of thing. So, tell me what brought you to that, both the professional and the personal that brought you to the work you're doing.
I feel like a lot of folks have this story, right? Through the pandemic. We're reassessing life, what's important, right? And at that time, I found myself in a job that just wasn't fulfilling to me, in a work culture that just was toxic. And it just didn't serve me. It didn't serve me, and it didn't serve my family. You just didn't see how life would be better if I would have stayed on this track. So, after my fourth child was born, it was just a chance to, in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, just a chance to reassess life. What do I like? And I came across a job posting for a business coach. And it's just like, I read it and it just really resonated with me, like the strategic planning, goal setting, leadership development, right? Just all the things that I loved to do when I was in the Army, all the things that I just didn't get to do enough of in my job at the time. And so, once I read that, I was sold. And what's the pathway to it, right?
And it's felt much more fulfilling, huh?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that's the start of it. That's what brought me here.
Well, I already feel like I know something about you right now just because of the fact that you're willing to introspect and become self-aware and really realize that you deserve to be happy. Like our mission is to create a world where everybody loves their life. So not everybody thinks that's important, or they've been conditioned to think that it's just about putting your nose to the grindstone. So good for you that you wanted to be happy, not only for yourself, but to model that to your children. And also just to be willing to understand how important it is the people that you work with in feeling fulfilled.
Absolutely. They could
So
tell.
that fits very much on when everyone wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So how do you think when everyone wins or win-win would look or should look inside of a growing business?
Yeah. So, just when you think of growing business, right? A lot shifts, right? The things is so dynamic. Think like you could be a totally different business in a month, in
Mhm.
a week, even, right?
Yeah,
And to meet the needs of that business, it just, it takes a lot of flexibility, right? Now, when that happens, oftentimes it's just let's put out fires, right? So
yeah,
work is a fire drill, and
yes,
we'll go wherever the fire is. And there's no clear roles or responsibilities. It's just you know up to the whims of whoever's in charge, right?
yeah,
But for me, what I think win wins, where I think it starts anyway, is well, what does win look like for me in my
yeah,
position within this organization? Um, getting clear on that, right? Codifying that. When everybody knows and when everybody knows what their expectations are and focuses on those and can maintain flexibility. I think that's really the start of it. I know what path to go on now that I know what winning looks like.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny that you talk about fire drills and how it's putting out fires and how it can be so like you just have to kind of almost be reactive. And it's interesting because when people are moving fast and everything's shifting all the time, for some people, it's hard for them to maintain win-win during that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, when you're working with different clients, are you finding that this is kind of a theme that you have with them, or is it not about that at all?
I mean, it's when how should I say this? The desire is there, right? There's that intent. Of course they want everyone to win, right? I mean, at least the ones who I work with, right? The ones
Yeah.
who seek out the coaching. But to make it happen, right? Sometimes you have to, you know, make some decisions that maybe everyone doesn't win, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I think where where we can improve is just understanding what that win is, right? Getting everybody aligned on what that win is. And once that happens, again, it's just we're going to do what it takes. But there's more to it too. It's like as a leader, you know, are you how effective are you in that role? Are you able to inspire, motivate them? Um, are we serving their needs even, right? Are we
Mhm.
seeing them as people too,
Mhm. Mhm.
and caring for them, right? Um, but uh, but yeah, it's hard. It can get hard to lose sight of what that is, what win-win looks like, especially in a dynamic organization that's growing rapidly. Um, but there will be moments, but it's just coming back to it. How can we adjust such that we can maintain a win-win.
When you are leading your family, because you have four children, is that right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Do you feel like they would say, "Oh, Dad definitely helps us with have win-win with him," or is it more of a conventional? I'm the boss and you do what I say or
Oh,
else, you know?
definitely not that. I like there's always a compromise,
Mhm.
to some extent. Right? Certain things, no, right? But like the my daughter, right? She loves volleyball, but you know, there was conflict with another player on the team, which made it, just not a good environment for her. And she loves the game, but she couldn't. It was hard to just be around that person for her. And
Yeah.
um, I didn't like all she wanted to quit. Um, and I for me, I wanted her to stay. I gave her the option to quit, right? But I said that, I mean, this is what you love to do. Um, how can we make it such that, this is, you can withstand, you know, dealing with this teammate of yours, right? How can you work together to get there? And I think just the start of just having that conversation, what does win-win look like? How can we make this possible?
Mhm.
Um, for me, I mean, I love to watch her, like play. I love like that's her passion, you know. And yeah, she gets so much satisfaction from, all the aces that she gets or all the kills or when she depending on which position she's playing, when she sets it perfectly. It's just, you see how she lights up. Um, but what is, just kind of reminding her of what win does she want to have, you know,
Right,
the
right. And
win of
also, what
yeah.
would be a way to satisfy that within that other person? Because otherwise, they're going to keep feeling on that lose side and then not be able to want to, then they're going to want to return the favor. Okay, if you don't care about my win, then, I'm not going to care about your win. So it's so interesting to hear you talk about her mastery of her sport and how she puts her heart into it.
Mhm.
And I think the trick with business is to get people to want to put their heart into creating those healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Because just like the team, she loves the sport, she wants to be in the sport. And
Mhm.
sometimes just a negative person on the team makes it a much less pleasant experience where either the option is, and when you think of the workplace, the option can be I'm either going to quit or I'm going to, in some cases, people would say, I'm going to go tattle. I'm
Yeah.
going to get that
Yeah.
person written up. But hopefully, uh, it's about teaching people how to create that relationship that is win-win, which is
Mhm.
just as important to master as a craft, a sport, a business
Yeah.
skill.
Right.
So,
And it brings me to the idea of like connected leadership, right? As a leader, how connected are you with, your team members? Do you just know them as folks you pay to, perform a task, right? Or do you see them as actual humans, as people,
yes,
hopes and dreams and
yes,
challenges that they face at home? Um,
yes,
how often do you do a check-in with them and just, not
yes,
not talk about work, right?
yes.
Talk about other things that is very much a part of their lives. The whole idea of like you got to keep work and life separate. I think that's an impossibility right there.
It is.
You
I
can't do
agree.
that.
Well, you can try, but it's kind of toxic.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. So like, in leading the whole person, you have to, as a leader, know them, connect with them, spend time to know them and be vulnerable with them and allow them to be vulnerable with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
show that
Especially
you,
when you're growing a business or starting a business,
yeah,
because it's kind of like you raising your kids. They're in need of that encouragement. They're in need
yeah,
of that. Please give me some direction that is going to
yeah,
serve.
absolutely. The care, the grace too, you know,
Yeah.
because, things aren't going to go right all the time. We're not going to always hit the
No,
mark.
it would be great, but no,
Right,
we'd be out
right,
of business also, Tam.
right.
So, so when you think about power over, because we're always talking about power over and power under. and power within as opposed to power over and under. And it makes me wonder about your military experience because
Yeah.
typically, and I don't know because I've never been in the military, but typically there's a lot of power over power under dynamics. At least, is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah, I mean, with hierarchy, there is, but I think it just depends on the situation, or the scenario. Um, you know, in the middle, I mean, you just had, you know, there's a structure behind it, and for good
Mhm.
reason. I mean,
Yeah.
as a war fighter, you had to have that, but in some instances, you can't really. It's like a mix of the two that you need. Um,
I
um,
actually think win-win is easier to do within a structure.
Yeah, yeah. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, when I think of power over, I think like micromanagement, right? Like,
Yes.
is it like I think about um leading with what's it? It's the carrot versus the stick, right? And this you're using the stick more, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's my way or the highway, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like one-sided decisions, one-way conversations, right? And
Yeah.
that's where there's really no place for any of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
So
the
Tam, do you help the people that you're coaching with? Do you help them to drop some of those behaviors like
yeah,
micromanagement and
eh,
fear-based?
right, absolutely. And a lot of the clients that I work with, um, they started the business on their own, right? When they first started off, they were everything to that business. They did everything, sales, marketing, operations, finance, admin, led the vision of the company and made it all happen, right? And at some point in their growth, right, they had to start hiring because, we're all
Yes.
human. We only have so much capacity. Um,
Right.
and, but they're still used to running everything, right?
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, well, if you can't, it's a thought of like, if you want it done right, you're gonna do it yourself, right? And
Right.
they just it stays that way, or it's their way or the highway, and but breaking out of that, right? And I think this kind of relates to burnout too. Um, your the inability of someone to just let go, right, of those
Yeah.
things and truly delegate and empower your people. Um, there's a saying. What is that saying? You only learn how to ride a bike because someone let go. Right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like
sure.
you only
And
learn
it
how to
wasn't
ride a.
always, it was so, and it always had a certain edge of fear, really.
Yeah, yeah. And there will be, there will be some wobbles, maybe some falls and stumbles, but that's how you learn, right?
That's right.
And
That's right.
for as it relates to a business owner, in order for them to truly allow their people to thrive, to run with whatever it is that they are assigned, all the functions, the responsibilities that they have, they got to let them learn it. They got to you know, let them go, and then give feedback, of course, and
Yes.
like yeah, that's where I think a lot of the business owners that I work with, I'd say the majority of them need help there. Um, it's also, there's a fear, right? The fear that, oh, if something goes wrong, it's the end of the world. It's
Yeah.
it for my business, right? But they're so long as we have the safeguards, we do the check-ins, right? Um, just because you give someone that process doesn't mean you can't have approval authority or something like that
Yes.
built
Or at
into it,
least,
right?
right.
To
Yeah.
to 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 kind of guide them, but still, right? To be able to,
Sure.
and then once it reaches a point where they can take the training wheels off, then they do it and they go. Yeah,
And they have to want to ride the bike. It's kind of, it
yeah,
reminds me a little bit about the intrinsic motivators. I don't know if you've studied those, you probably have, but we have to have a sense of meaningfulness with what we do. And we have to have a sense of choice, like that we have at least some kind of say over some of it,
yeah.
And then we need that competence so that we can do the job and not be afraid that we're going to fail at it all the time. So,
Mhm.
like you said, you got to be there to make sure they're kind of guided and then to celebrate them. So, is
Absolutely.
that sort of, can you tell us any stories about how what the before and after were with these
Yeah.
business owners?
Yeah. So the example that comes up, right? I have a client. He's a high-end custom home builder, um,
Mhm.
or he aimed to be, right? Just starting off within that segment of the market. Um, yeah, he dreaded hiring. He dreaded bringing people on. He knew he needed help on the admin side primarily, right? The guy can build like no one else, right? He's probably one of the best builder arguably in the US, I feel. But while he was excellent there, when it came to the administrative work, the financials, invoicing, all that stuff, it just fell to the wayside, right? And with business, right, you got to have that function going.
Yes.
It's got to run. You know, and so what, and then also like as he brought on more work, well, I mean, the operation started to falter, right? Because again, capacity, he's human. Um, and so it was just like, he was burned before hiring the wrong people. Um, and he's just really hesitant about it, right? Like, because that's what he expected was to go through this whole process, bring someone on board, and it all ends up in his eyes being a waste of time. Um,
Mhm.
what I did, well, how I helped with that was, instill a hiring process. Just let's hire the right way, right? Um, and we hire, primarily. I mean, skill set's one of them, but core values is the other one. Like are your questions really getting at that, right? Core values are the ticket on the bus, right? I mean, you can't if you don't have those, you can't really. It's hard to change. It's not impossible. Skills that experience that can be gained, right?
Yes.
Um, but and so yeah, we went through this hiring process, or implementing this hiring process, and you know was able to hire a solid office operations manager, right? He was, and right now he's on the. We're about to hire a project manager to help him with the workload. Um, but he wouldn't be able to meet the demand if it was just him. If he was just stuck in his mindset of, if I hire, it's gonna be a failure, and it's gonna be a big waste of time, and my business is gonna go anywhere, right? Well, if you do nothing, your business is gonna go nowhere too. So which pain do you want, right? Um,
Exactly. And it seems like people always look at something that they don't feel that confident in. They don't realize the price they're paying for not having it. Then it seems like a waste of time.
yeah.
But the reality is it's not, because it's lopsided. It kind of reminds me of the story of your daughter. She's excellent at her sport, but has that strengthening needed on learning how to create that trusting kind of dynamic with people that are not easy to do that with.
Mhm.
And when you're talking about he's the best builder, it tends to be that sometimes people that want to run their own company or be in a position of management, they're so skilled at what they do, but it doesn't mean that they've picked up the skills for leading.
Yeah.
And I see that in the tech industry, I see it in the building industry, in the healthcare
Mhm.
industry.
Yeah.
So,
And it's like, when I had a strategy professor. Uh, he said this, and it really stuck with me, right? If the market offers it more efficiently, then you need to go with the market. So
mm,
as a business owner, you're trying to do everything yourself, like sales, marketing, and you're at a point where, just don't have the capacity to do it. Go hire somebody to do it. Find the right person to do it, um, and trust that they can do it.
yes.
Um, um, yeah. I mean, it's No, financials have to be in order, right? But um,
So
yeah,
Tam, when you left your last position because you were unhappy, was it because you didn't like the work, or was it because you didn't have a full win-win with the people you worked with, or some combination?
it was like my direct team. We were solid. Like I wouldn't have, you know, to run an oil and gas or to run an oil field, this is what I did. Couldn't have asked for a better team. Um, Now, once you got to like, layers above, right, and then support, just the culture wasn't there, right, of support.
Okay. So the
Um,
ones
yeah,
above this group were
yeah,
not really committed to that win-win kind of trust
correct.
and sense of, because when I think of win-win, I think of the values that build trust, which are like being receptive, being
Yeah,
respectful, giving recognition, all that kind of thing.
right. It was all like I remember a lot of finger pointing, right? I remember a lot of like, um, jockeying for power, for you know, accolades, and it wasn't about like us as a team. It was about, I feel there's a lot of self-interest there.
You're talking
Uh,
about the people that were leading.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So
uh,
they did not know how to do power within and power between. They knew how to do
correct.
power over. And the heck with whatever your power is,
Yeah,
it's kind of not even on my radar, right?
right. You try your best to like, do what's right for
Yeah.
the field, the people, the environment, and
Hmm.
you know,
Did you ever yourself or anyone in your group ever try to go and heal that kind of rift between those levels?
yeah, and I'd have to say though, like we were in a stage of like turmoil, because, the volatility of oil prices, impacts that for sure. All the reorgs, and there must have been like at least two or three reorgs in the last year I was there. Um, so it was hard to like really, establish those relationships with people because they're
Yeah,
constantly changing. Um,
it's it's so easy to move away from win-win when stress hits.
yeah,
It takes even more determination, more
yeah.
support, more ideas.
Hmm.
Even if you're kind of aware, ooh, I'm not going in a direction I want to, a lot of people don't necessarily know what to do instead.
Yeah.
So, which kind of, goes to that, the more stressful it is, the more burnout you feel, the more you
Mhm.
just want to leave. It's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So, I know you and I both know about psychological safety and how important that is. How have you created that in your own work or helped the clients that you serve?
Yeah. And it's just, what does it really mean? Like when to be psychologically safe, or to feel that way, in an organization. And I think it's understanding that, right? Because, I often lead or coach leadership teams, and, the owner's a part of it, right? And you sense like sometimes, a lot of the time actually, some of their people don't want to speak up, you know. Um, and when they do speak up, get squashed, right? Well, I mean, you're kind of conditioning them to not speak up when
Yes.
there's something wrong. Um, and it's just calling out that behavior, you know, because when people raise issues because they want to see an improvement in the company, right? They want to fix something. Um, and if, as the business owner, as a leader, we are not allowing that, we're essentially saying, yeah, I don't want it to be fixed, or and it's they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing that. But
Yeah.
building a psychologically, like, but the first part is always awareness, right? Notice this, notice how you're doing this. Um, the other part is too is like, because it could be, even beyond that owner themselves, like, how do people take criticism? How do people take feedback, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you know, there's no well to do that, or how I help people do that. I mean, establish these norms. How do we manage, or how do we approach conflict with each other, right? How do we bring up these issues? What are the rules around that? It's because the rules aren't clear, the expectations for
Yeah.
how we do this
Yeah.
haven't been agreed to yet or even formulated. Um,
And I think
so
people think they're already supposed to know how to do it.
yeah, right.
So then
It's
they take
assumed
their
that
viewpoint on
everybody,
and they have to pretend like they know, even though they're like, I don't know what to do about this.
right, right. And so it just kind of leaves them with, do I do it or do I not? Right. It's kind of in this like limbo and like, when it gets shut down and just no one speaks up and you're just kind of just tread water here, you know.
It's so
Whatever.
interesting that you're saying that because it's hard in a way. I think most of us have been conditioned to not speak up because so we aren't really encouraged to be ourselves. We're more encouraged to be conforming and compliant. At least most children are
Yeah.
to a large degree. And it's not like that's all bad, but it can be where so I love that you talked about the owner and the employee. Like
Mhm.
sometimes it's never one or the other. It's all of
Mhm.
it's the group dynamic, really. And the ability to influence each other because you have confidence or you have a sense of your self-worth,
Yeah,
something like that.
absolutely. And it's so like as a leader, right, to bring that out in them, right? Because
Yeah.
you want that diversity of thought, right?
Mhm.
Diversity of background and experience, and that's what will drive that success. The creativity that's needed to succeed. Um, and you can't get that if like you expect people to fall in line, right?
Right.
If you squash any uh any noise or anything that goes against your opinion or will.
Yeah.
um yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I make assumptions that, well, everybody should appreciate the diversity of thought, but
Yeah.
it's not always the case. A lot of people
Mhm.
come into positions thinking we're all supposed to think alike. We're
Right.
all supposed to be alike. We're all even supposed to value the same things. And that's just so not true. And so, so when you think of psychological safety, what does that mean to you personally?
Yeah, I mean, it means that, like you said, you can be yourself, you can speak your mind, and not be afraid of any negative repercussions. You know,
Yeah.
you're actually beyond that, right? It's valued, right? That you speak your mind, that you bring up issues or ideas, to be who you are, contribute what you can contribute with everything you bring to the table. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I think about.
Yeah. I think to some extent, we have to really even know who do we like showing up to be, regardless if other people like it or not.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because this is going to be a spiritual thing to say, but I pray every day to be released from the need for love, approval, and acceptance from others. It doesn't mean I don't appreciate and like it when I get it, but if I need it from somebody, I'm not free.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to figure out how much do I have to withhold who I am and how much should I give and how
Mhm.
do I keep it from going away? And it's very transactional, but people don't realize that. And we kind of sell our soul a little bit when we do that. So you're right. It's about being safe to tell the truth because you've created some of that safety that you don't have to be like someone else,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
And in that environment, in that sort of yeah, if yeah, in that environment, it's just if you're free to be you, right? You're happier. Right? As an employee, you're happier.
Yeah.
Um, and you want to do your best work, right? You want to show up and deliver. Um, because you know you're allowed to be you. You're allowed to be happy. Um,
Yeah.
and the I think about because I really like for me, right? It was about um, validation, right? I need someone to say I did a good job, right? Or I got to work my butt off to get those grades or achieve X, Y, or Z,
Yeah.
make my numbers and all that stuff, and only then can I be happy. Um, but you gotta through a lot of work, through a lot of support, right? That source is you. But when the environment doesn't allow that, right? That's when they, as an employee, as someone, you gotta, extricate yourself from that situation and find a place where, um, that's not needed, right?
Yeah. It's so funny when you just said the thing you did about, I like the recognition. I like to be told you're doing a good job. Have you heard of the love languages? Do you know what that
Yeah, yeah,
is?
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, they have the guy who wrote the book, I think his name is Chapman. He has a book for the love languages of your children. And
Yeah.
it really is just social intelligence. We do it through our temperament assessment. It's not a DISC or
Mhm.
Myers-Briggs, but it's kind of like it's based on colors. And it is important to know what matters to them. By
Yeah.
the way, Tam, you're doing a fantastic job. You're
Thank
doing
you.
awesome. My love language is acts of service, and I
Yeah.
always feel like it's a little mercenary
Yeah.
because I like it when people do things for me, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's just what we prefer.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Words of affirmation are definitely my love language, along with quality time. I think
Yeah.
that's important too. But for as a leader, right? If you
Yes.
knew that about that person, if you like took the time and the effort to like understand, how do I best lead this individual, right? Because it's going to
Yes.
be different than how you best lead that individual and the other individual,
Yes.
Um, and so it just goes to, it just points to connected leadership, right? I mean, how are we
Yeah.
connecting with our people?
Yeah. And sometimes we're so oblivious until we've been taught to not be oblivious. It reminds me of this one manager. I don't even know. I don't think she was a manager. I think she was a coworker, but she said, I finally realized how this other person feels and I don't make her cry anymore. Like she never tried to make her cry, but the person, she didn't understand how different they were.
Yeah.
And so it is about just being aware and I think if we weren't worried that we were going to get in trouble if we discover something we don't know, we wouldn't be so afraid to be curious,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah. I
so let's
think,
get into the nuts and bolts a little bit of what you do that kind of sets people up for being able to win at their job. What
yeah.
are the first systemic changes that you bring to a business?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first one, it involves, it's focused on planning, right? Because I think that's something that, you know, owners, as they grow, they lose sight of it, right? We're just gonna, you know,
Wing it.
deliver, right?
Yeah, we're just gonna
Do
wing
whatever it
it.
takes to deliver and collect and deliver, and you lose sight of, well, I mean, you're just going, it's just day to day. You're putting out fires all, just to make it happen, and just you're doing a lot of work, and the task list just keeps growing and growing, and just it's overwhelming. Um,
Yeah.
but
So when you do
nice,
the planning, or do you start with
yeah.
like a vision or mission? Is that
Yeah. Yep. So like I will like very first session, right, I have with the client. We talk about, let's understand where we are today, right? And we do an exercise called the SWOT analysis, strengths,
yeah,
weaknesses, opportunities, and threats,
right.
right? Very bread and butter, does the trick every time though, right?
Yeah,
And but how do you know where to go unless you know where you are?
yeah,
It's with the SWOT analysis, we are defining our point A, right, on this journey
yes.
that we're taking. Um, from there in the first session also, let's figure out what that point B is, right? Long-term objectives. Let's look 3 years out.
Yeah,
Um, where do you want to go? Let's imagine that, it's January 23rd or January 20th, yeah, January 23rd, 2029, right? Imagine you won in life. Imagine that, everything you've wanted to achieve in these past 3 years have been achieved, right? You've won. What does that world look like? You know, and to be able to like spell that out to you know see it, reflect on it. Truly, what do I want? Because they're not thinking about that when they're buried in the day to day. Um,
Yeah.
but just taking that step back to reflect on those two things. Where am I today, and where do I want to go? Right,
Yeah.
and then from there we start to develop goals. Um, I think of goals as like, okay, let's look 1 year out.
Yeah.
Um, what does that first leg of the journey look like for you?
Yeah.
And what is the result that you want to achieve? So, if we're January 2026 right now, put yourself in December of 2026, right?
Right.
What's the result that you hope to achieve by that point in time?
I love it because you're starting with the vision first and
Yeah,
then the goals fall out from
yeah,
them. It would be like because you work in construction, it would be like just starting to put up walls without knowing what you actually want to use the
right.
house
With
for.
no plan, right? Exactly. You
Right.
always start with a blueprint, right? You
Right.
always have that.
Yeah.
But you need that also for, your business, the rest of the business. Um, and that's essentially how I start off with, like you're implementing a system of planning, right? A system
Yeah.
that we're going to do every year, um, that involves checking in on it on a bi-weekly basis or monthly basis, and seeing, hey, where are we? Azimuth check here. Are we heading the right direction? You know,
Yeah.
um, and just that alone, right? It provides that structure you need to ensure that not attacking, you're addressing the right priorities.
Mhm.
Um, that as the owner, I am focusing on the things that matter most to the company that gets us further along on this path toward that point B of ours.
Yeah, which probably puts the leader then in that position of having more room within themselves to be curious and helpful to the people that they're leading, as
Yeah,
opposed to just kind of being running willy-nilly trying to make stuff
right.
happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, when you include in the rest of the team into that process too, now we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Now we know, together we know what the priorities are. Um, and together we can figure out how each of us can contribute to getting there.
Yeah, and it reminds me of when NASA they'd asked the janitor, "Why do you work here?" And he said, "Because I'm going to put a man on the moon." Like they all had the vision. And it also made me think when you said you don't know where you are until you don't know where you want to go if you don't even know where you are, something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I we do something like that around relationships. We always say, do you have any relationships where you don't have a 10? Meaning any relationships where there's something unresolved. And a
Yeah.
lot of times until they ask the question, they don't realize, you know what? I have two people here at work. They're not in terrible crisis with me, but we got a couple unresolved things and I've just been ignoring them. And I would give
Yeah.
them an 8 instead of a 10, or I would give one
Right.
an 8 and one a 6. And it's like what you're doing with them, understanding where they are and where they
Yeah.
want to go. And
Absolutely.
then it's helping them to do it in a way that doesn't overwhelm them, I'm
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah. And small steps at a time, right? I mean, oftentimes like clients will want to write down 10 goals. I'm going to do it all, right?
Yeah.
In my mind, 2 to 3, you know,
Yeah, baby steps.
baby
We do
steps.
that too because what happens is I think people don't want to move from awareness into managing anything.
Yeah.
They just want to talk about it until
Right.
you make it so that it's guaranteed to
Yeah.
succeed and then they can build upon that. I,
Right.
it's funny though, most people resist that idea of taking a baby step.
Yeah. I mean, and like the goal is just the result, right? I mean, you also have to think of what's the strategy that can allow us to accomplish this goal. What are the
Yeah.
action items associated with that strategy that allows
Yeah.
us to achieve this goal? That allows us
Yes.
to get to that long-term objective, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's like the whole process of like chunking things down into smaller
Yeah.
bits, right?
But if you take too big of a bite, you don't even want to chunk it. Like it's too big to even
Right.
chunk.
Yeah, you choke on it, right? And it just doesn't go down the
Exactly.
gullet, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
All interesting. So when you're working with businesses, you're working primarily with the owners, is that right?
Primarily with the owners, but oftentimes they'll bring in their leadership teams as well.
Okay.
Um, because often it's sometimes it gets stuck at the owner, to be honest, right? Because once the session, oftentimes the time that we have together is the only time that they have. 2 hours a month, right? Is the only times they have to
Wow.
focus on the business, right? Otherwise, they're in the business.
Yeah.
So with that being the case a lot of the time, um, passing the word down to their or passing the word to their team members, it just doesn't happen. Right? So, I always often encourage them, hey, bring them in, right? Well, let's more heads are better than one.
Yeah.
So, let's collaborate. Let's work together on this. You don't have to, run this business in a silo. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that when you bring the team in, that they want win-win in general, or do they need your help to get there?
and it's they definitely because they've been in this mode so long of wherever they are, right? It could be not so much win-win. A lot of the times, they uh, you kind of have to you know adjust their thinking a little bit, or help them adjust their thinking. And it takes just, a lot of times they come in like, why am I here? Right? I got all this other stuff to do. What am I doing here sitting
Right.
around
This is
and
a
talking
waste of
about this
time.
stuff? Right.
Right.
Yeah. Um, but when they see the results, right?
Yes.
What can be achieved, right? What are when we can truly celebrate those wins, and it starts to click for them. Oh, this is why we do this. Um,
Yeah.
this is why we come together, we get aligned, we come to agreement on the
Yeah.
paths forward. It just yeah, when that happens, it's just beautiful. And like all the time, it's like it happens. Like it's like, what am I doing here? Every single time. But um, when we stay committed, when we're able to achieve those wins, then yeah.
Well, it sounds like you could be describing power within. Is that how you would describe it for a manager or somebody leading the pack?
Yeah, and it's when you can come together and you can like agree upon what it is that I'm doing, what's my like, how are we dividing and conquering this thing, right? Because again, at this point in their business, they can't do it alone. Um, and it can't be run like a hierarchy, right? We have to split up the functions, right? Who's going to own what? Just
So
getting clear on that.
how would a manager model power within and encourage power within everyone at every level? Not power over him or her
Yeah.
or power under him or her, but how would that manager or owner really encourage and model power within? What would it look like?
Yeah, I think, a lot like the grace that we spoke of before, right? Allowing them to, I mean, first making the expectations clear, right? This is what you're expected to do, how you're expected to do it. You're managing the system and not the people, right? And allow the people to run with it, and recognize that, and just be okay that there's going to be some mistakes, but addressing those as they come along, right? Um, yeah, only then can folks really own or have like a sense of ownership um, in the company.
Yeah, and so with sense of ownership actually comes with having that belief that I can exercise my power from within,
Yeah,
not to dominate anybody, but to accomplish something,
yeah,
to step into the initiative of it,
mhm,
right?
yeah.
And yet, if people are too afraid, what does power within look like to a person on the front line?
So, person on the front line, I would say, I know what I need to do today, and I'm going to do it. And if there's any challenges, I'm gonna figure it out myself, or if I need help, I'm gonna ask somebody to help me. You know,
So they have that sense of fearlessness in a way.
yeah, courage, empowerment, they own it, they don't need someone to tell them what to do.
Okay.
They need very minimal guidance at that,
Okay.
right?
They're self-managing,
Yeah,
and they sounds like they're fairly confident, would you say?
yeah, absolutely.
That's what power
Absolutely.
within would look like in a frontline person. How would a frontline person show power within in a group meeting?
I'd say, it's just speaking up, just,
Yeah.
have the ability to voice your opinion, feel
Right.
psychologically safe, right? In that
Yeah.
environment.
You know what's
Um,
so funny? I think psychological safety, people think it should be provided to them, just like trust should be
yeah,
provided. Like you've got to prove that I can trust you. And I actually think it's an inside job more than anything.
yeah,
I decide if I'm going to be psychologically safe and create psychological safety, even if I'm the bottom of the rung.
right, right. I mean, someone has to initiate it, right?
Yeah.
Testing the waters, right? Because
Or inviting it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Tam, I know we are kind of getting down to the wire. Um, I would like to ask you what are the things that you think people listening to this who may be starting a business or in the middle of it being in a growth stage, but still
Yeah.
kind of early stage where they have to learn how to let go and how do I manage this bigger deal thing? What would you want them to know?
I would say there's a quote. I love quotes.
I do
They're so
too.
inspiring. It's by this Persian poet and philosopher Rumi.
Oh, I love
Um,
Rumi.
Rumi's amazing. Um, he said, "As you walk the path shall appear." Something along those lines. I'm not sure if got it exactly right. Right? As you walk the path shall appear. Um, a lot of times we get stuck in our own heads, right? What do I do
Yes.
next? What is it that, and you spend all this time and energy and effort just like thinking, right?
Yes.
Thinking and like, this is the path and that is the path and analyzing and all that. When truly, you just need to take an action.
Yes.
Take that step.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gather the information.
People would rather just keep ruminating
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, yeah. Take that step. It's like an experiment. You make a hypothesis and you experiment to prove whether that hypothesis is right or wrong. Right.
Yeah.
That's what an
So
action is.
you're really telling our listeners, don't be afraid to just take the next step.
100%.
Don't be afraid if it's right or wrong. It will become clear what is next no matter what. Oh, I love
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I think that's the best way to live life. We don't have to be so worried about um, doing it right all the time, or instead of just enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah. Take those actions, right? I
Yes,
mean,
yes,
that's what success is, small
yes.
steps.
Well,
Consistent small steps over a long period of time. That's what gets you there.
exactly. It's those little baby steps, and all of a sudden we're grown-ups in our own
Absolutely.
lives.
Yep. Yep.
So, one of the things that I really feel excited about is that hopefully people that are listening that may be growing a business, or maybe they have a family member that's starting a business or growing a business, and they're really trying to get it to that next level. I think one of the most important things is to really meet people like Tam because they are committed to helping you get that win-win going and to feel that support so that you don't think you have to be a leader that does it all by yourself. And to know that it doesn't have to be big stuff, it just has to be consistent. And so, Tam, we talked a little bit about embodying win-win. And I feel like you making the decision to live a life that you love was you choosing win-win. And
Absolutely.
I just think that in itself is such a role model for our listeners. So thank you so much for coming on and talking about how you create win-win when you're helping these businesses.
Thank you, Judy. My pleasure.
You've been listening to When Everyone Wins, where we're shifting power over and under to power within and between. I'm Judy Ryan, your transformation talk radio host. Tune in each second and fourth Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific time to learn new concepts and tools and listen to conversations I have with thought leaders and change agents. You'll also see real-world applications of what I'm covering so that you experience the power of the concepts and tools I share. In each episode, I bring you my knowledge from decades in workplace culture transformation and leadership development as the founder and CEO of LifeWorks Systems. I invite you to call in with your unique stories and questions. The path to ensure that everyone wins depends on our ability as people to create a life we love and help others do the same. For more information, visit lifeworksystems.com.